The website you're watching this on has only been around for 20 years. Now, 20 years is a long time for a lot of things, but if you really think about it, the past 20 years have flown by. Inventions like the iPhone, YouTube, vaping, TikTok, fentanyl, they've changed the world. But I think that we can forget just how long life actually is. The most successful people from the original generation of YouTubers, people like Smosh, iJustine, Nigahiga, are really the longest lasting creators in the space. And though some of them aren't active anymore, a lot of them still are. And we don't really know what someone like Anthony Padilla or Nigahiga's career will look like in another 20 years. And I think that's a really interesting discussion, especially because I'm someone who is very interested in doing this as a profession one day, right? And let alone the landscape of the current world where it's the profession most kids want to have. They want to be social media influencers. But it's always been my view that even if you are extremely successful as a creator, so successful that you can make enough money to retire very young, you're still limited by your window of relevancy. Think about the best creators, maybe even the longest lasting creators on the website. They've had to have significant changes, and let's be honest, from the peak Smosh days, Anthony Padilla has fallen off. It's just the truth. I mean, his solo stuff is great. I'm sure he still makes a great living, but the reality of the situation is you kind of only have maybe a decade maximum where you're at your prime for earning, your prime for creating, and at some point, your audience will lose interest. When you compare this to other entertainment industries, the only thing that I think this is even comparable to is professional sports. Now, professional sports are very different because there's an age component. You know, the people doing this put their bodies on the line, and if their bodies aren't in the top shape necessary, well, they can't do their jobs anymore. And though it's not as physically dependent, YouTube functions in much the same way. You are going to work for a while. Maybe you'll have an amazingly long Tom Brady career, and you'll be a big YouTuber, and you'll get fucking 10 million view videos for a decade, right? But eventually it dries up. And in this situation, you have to hope that your core viewers will keep watching and paying you forever, or you need to figure something else out. And as a lot of these creators start to actually age, it is going to be weird to see. You know, there are YouTubers who are currently like successful that are senior citizens, but I'm talking about when the culture that you created, you know, someone like Markiplier, how important you were to the point in time where you were at your peak sort of taints you in the future. And maybe this will change, but I think that the consensus among most people, if you were to ask them about Markiplier, is that he's kind of cringe, right? So imagine when Markiplier is 60, and if Markiplier is still running the same bits, and what that means for the reception of his content. Now, the idea of figuring something else out is where I think the most fun is to be had. Once again, someone like PewDiePie, he could continue to post forever, and he'd at a minimum get a few 100,000 views purely because he's just that massive of a creator, but a few 100,000 views is enough for you to have a good living, let alone hopefully having a decent amount of money invested and saved up. But there are a lot of creators who never make it that far. You know, even if you have like 250,000 subscribers, if you're a full-time content creator, the rules still apply to you, and you have to figure out what you're going to do when you go from 100,000 view videos to 4K view videos, and you don't have that big bubble of money sort of protecting you and insulating you. And for some people, maybe it's just go back to your normal career, you know, go back to being a chemist or an electrician or whatever it is you did before you got the best job ever. But then this made me think about my sports metaphor again, and how there's sort of an elite few in sports where they were such captivating athletes that they can have careers in athletics, not as athletes. And I don't think this exists for the YouTube space. What are you gonna do? You're gonna be an agent? Are you gonna be you're gonna be an advertiser? Like, you don't have the skills. Maybe you have the network to be an agent, maybe, but if you were a creator, right, you are too close to a lot of the people that you know in your personal network. At least that would be my thought if that was what I was considering doing. If you aren't one of those elite people, you're going to need an exit strategy. And what I think is interesting is these exit strategies are getting built now. In the next few decades, we are going to see how a post-YouTube career works and what it looks like. We're going to learn the methods, and we're going to find the metas. And people who were formerly content creators will shift and mold themselves into other things to try to maybe stay relevant or use however their content engaged an audience to like sell a product or something. Maybe we'll even see something like a MatPat Congress campaign. And YouTubers will start to get into politics, and that whole Mr. Beast being president thing actually had some weight to it. As all of these pieces fall into place, it honestly makes me think about the longevity of all of this. In traditional media, there's plenty of room for older actors, older news reporters, and as they age up and eventually die out to be replaced, younger people can come in and start at the bottom of the ladder and work their way up. YouTube doesn't have this structure. This can't exist in the social media age. It's as I described it. You have your hype window, and at any time, you could lose it. And beyond that, you're just kind of left holding the bag, and you have to figure out what to do with the rest of your life. And that's why I think you shouldn't want to do YouTube. It doesn't make sense. There's a million other reasons, but purely from a you make it perspective, there are still significant downsides to weigh in. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. So I wanted to make a video discussing that, and I would love to hear your thoughts about YouTube and the long-term play for YouTubers and what they're going to do. Sorry for not uploading for 3 weeks. I got laid off. More about that on my second channel if anybody gives a shit. But honestly, who cares? We're back. We're grinding. Let's get this bread. New videos every Monday!